Hi, everybody. Welcome to Headlines. It's another great day, and we're going to add some context to the headlines and also have some predictions for upcoming events next year. So let's get right to it. First off, we've got the long dreaded or hoped for, depending on your point of view, maybe widening of the war in the Middle East. So initially, we have Israel trying to eject Hamas from the Gaza Strip area after Hamas killed tons of went into Israel, killed tons of people, took hostages, still holding hostages. And it was believed, probably quite rightly, that Hamas is being funded, controlled, advised by Iran. And this has been a problem with peace in the Middle East, peace between Israel and the Palestinians, is that so many other countries around the region have their own reasons to try to scuttle any kind of peace that Israel would try to make with the Palestinians. So here we have, down in the Red Sea, this is in the little bend that goes next to Yemen, around the bottom of the Arabian Peninsula. We have increasing attacks on shipping there. And that's a major place where ships go through. The US and the UK, both policemen of the world, spend a lot of money trying to keep that area safe. If you remember, 10, 15 years ago, we had the Somali pirates, which is on the other side of Yemen, a chaotic area. So the US had to come in, shoot a lot of people, as these things usually go. But here we have Yemen, who the Houthi rebels that control large parts of the country. You might ask, well, why does the U.S. or U.K. have to come in to do all this? Why do they have to pay for that? And that's a good question. And the answer is, really, there aren't any other countries that have shown they're competent to do it, even if they have all the money in the world, like Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has spent years trying to blow Yemen to bits and trying to enforce its will there. But instead, they've got another Iranian-backed group that wants to work on behalf of Iran to widen the war in the Middle East and scuttle anything that Israel wants to do. So we've talked about this for the last few months, the chances that the war in the Middle East could be expanded with something like this happening in Yemen, or maybe something like this happening in the north of Israel, where, again, Iranian-backed groups could always start to hurl a lot of missiles or really try to open the northern part of Israel up as some kind of a second front, just to muddy the waters and make it, especially, see, in all of these, the issue is not just, who has the most firepower, because none of these groups are going to destroy Israel. Israel's better equipped, richer, and has more experience in direct war than any of these countries do. But the battle is always sort of like the home front battle. Who's paying for it? These wars, both in the Ukraine and both in Israel, the US, the UK, other Western liberal democracies. And I think Iran sees that the public opinion, at least the loudest public opinion, the young, dumb college students on campus, they're protesting against it. So they might think, well, maybe like Vietnam, we can win the battle back in the United States and just cause people to say, we don't want to pay for this. And I've spoken about this before. When there was a Republican president like George W. Bush, the media in the United States spent a lot of time saying he's a war criminal. It's evil. The U.S. is evil for paying money to fund overseas wars where women and children can be killed. And a lot of people, even on the right side, started to believe that. So this may be the result of all of that propaganda over the years, in that the U.S. is not as interested. This is what America's adversaries, its enemies, hopes, that the U.S. will find it increasingly difficult to want to fund this, to fund these wars. So here we go down. We have Netanyahu, anger at Israel, Israeli government mounts. The issue is there were some hostages, Israeli hostages that supposedly were waving a red flag, and even they were killed by the invading Israeli forces in Gaza. So this might lend credence to the idea that Israel is acting indiscriminately without regard for human life in the Gaza Strip, which is contrary to what they do claim. But you see how all these external things build up an image to make other countries maybe want to say, "Oh, let's have a ceasefire. Let's not keep pumping money into this situation." Now, I want to make clear that's not a position I'm advocating. I'm just explaining the situation. The bottom line is that you probably do want countries like the U.S. and the U.K. being the policemen of the world, even at the cost, because there aren't any other countries that are willing or able or rich enough to do that. There are a lot of countries that still depend on oil shipments and the major shipping lanes for everything to work, including big countries that pay America's debt. And on top of that, we have the situation where, do you really want another country to take that over? Would you want China to use its army or use its navy like it's building up in the South China Sea to start patrolling other major sea routes in the world? Would they be as accountable? I mean, you can hate the U.S. all you want, but because of its system, it is vulnerable to public pressure. I'm not sure you could say the same thing for China. And on top of that, we have to say Israel has been the rock-solid democratic ally of the West and done a lot of the West's dirty work in stopping nuclear proliferation in the Middle East for many, many years. It doesn't seem right to completely abandon it now. Again, I think you'll probably see the middle road that is being taken by the U.S. administration in saying, let's get a ceasefire. Let's get a ceasefire in place so it's not so difficult to keep sending funds overseas for these battles. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. We've talked about here for some time, when we had the Republican governor of Iowa who came out to endorse DeSantis in the primaries, which will happen, I believe, middle of January next year, less than 30 days now. And that was a little strange because DeSantis was sort of a failed candidate by that point, and Trump was way ahead. But this indicated the background intent, the guys in the smoke-filled rooms to try to change or present a different candidate other than Trump, who has so much baggage. At the same time, we heard the same thing on the Democratic side, where you can't hide the apparent senility or slowness of Biden that much. It might be better to get another guy in place of Biden as well, especially if they're able to switch up. You see, if you have a Trump-Biden matchup, the media can go in whole hog and try to educate the public that they should not be voting for Trump, and Biden is the lesser of two evils, even based on his physical state. But if they got a younger, more vibrant, moderate-sounding candidate to get in the Republican side, that might make suddenly Biden seem like not the right candidate to be against such a person. We have to point out, of course, a lot of the things DeSantis has said do appeal to a certain right-leaning populace, but it might be seen as too right-wing for most of the American electorate. All the way since the Clinton administration, we have the idea that you want to capture the middle ground, and that, despite people screaming and shouting that everyone's polarized in their ideas, Americans tend to sort of weave into the middle, whether they're left or they're right. And you see that how the presidencies here go back between the two major parties. Of course, other people would say that just shows there's really no difference between them, but there are some differences. See, here's DeSantis also coming out hard against Trump, saying he's going to be a liar. I suppose with this, I can talk about some of the predictions, and you can see for quite a while now, I've been talking about how the powers that be in the back rooms of the Republicans and the Democrats have tried to change out the candidates, have tried to present someone else or posit that someone else is needed. Now we're getting up to January, and Trump seems to be way ahead. Nobody else seems to be able to touch him so far. And really, the rest of this month is a dead time for politics, especially in the United States. People of all stripes take time off. Businesses, schools are off. It's vacation time. The news cycle will wind down. So there's very little time to get someone else winning these primary elections. And of course, in the United States, the very first couple, 2 or 3 months are critical. So if Trump wins the first few, or whoever does, that's essentially going to be a lock on the primary for that candidate. We haven't seen many cases of someone winning all the first ones, and then right at the end, someone coming on strong and causing and upending the front runner. So it's vital to the powers that be to say, if we're going to replace Trump, if we're going to replace Biden, the time to do that is almost over. And so the prediction for the new year, and well, it's always easy to make a prediction about what's going to happen next month. But the further and further you get out, the more variables that can occur that throw those predictions into chaos. So if people had asked, well, who's going to be running in the election in November next year? And it seems like at this point, all the bets would be on Trump versus Biden. Doesn't seem like anybody is going to unseat him. I know Nikki Haley was touted as perhaps being able to do that. She might win big, I believe, in South Carolina. But that might not be enough to unseat the numbers, how Trump's looking right now. And I know you see the media. I think that the Democrats have depended on the media in the U.S., which largely it leans left, if not is completely left, to educate the populace, to tell them not to vote for Trump and to bring up all these scandals. This was a strategy in 2016. And if you were in the media environment in the United States at that time, almost a year before the election in 2016, the U.S. media was out there congratulating both itself and the nation for electing a woman president. And it was all pats on the back for Hillary and just really contempt eventually for Trump. But that created a situation where most people expected Hillary to win because they had been told that. But when the results came out, people did not listen to the education from the media. They voted for Trump, and this shocked a lot of people. And I know many, and most of my contacts and people are from outside the United States, and they hear this as well, through their own local media. It's almost 100% like how Trump was such a laughable character that never had a chance to win in any situation. And they were completely stunned. And this has been a strategy that has gone on for quite a while, because I remember in the re-election campaign for George W. Bush, I was overseas at the time, and after he was elected, there were foreigners who were stunned that, their media only said George Bush is a war criminal. He gives money to all these wars overseas that kill women and children. He's going to be brought before the Hague for war crimes, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a shock that Bush could win. Now, some would, certainly the first election of Bush is contested, and I have to admit, I don't think he probably deserved to win that. That was Gore. But the second one, it seems he did win, hands down. So this shows how the stuff we see from the media can create a warped situation in our minds and our expectations. And I think that's the intent of a lot of stuff for the media. However, unless there's some bold strategy to somehow disqualify Trump, and they've tried that, they're trying it now, I don't think they can stop him from perhaps gaining the nomination again next year. At least that's what it looks like now with the numbers, and compared to anybody else who might get there. And we have the same situation for Biden. Doesn't seem like there's any chance that anybody else is in the offing to replace him. And really, I think for the Democrats, for the left, we have a situation where they are, positing that the country will end if Trump is reelected. Again, it's sort of the same thing that they said the first time in 2016. It's amped up now with these claims that Trump is going to take over like a dictator, et cetera, et cetera. Certainly, quite a lot of this is hype, but I think there's a feeling on the left that it's so dire that they just cannot, as we would say, switch horses in midstream. It's too difficult to switch from Biden to another candidate, and chance that this new person is going to be able to beat Trump. There is a sitting president always does have an advantage when the elections are going on. He can be out there and look presidential. When there's all these squabbling with politics locally and debates and people screaming at each other, Biden can go off to a foreign conference, maybe sign a treaty, meet with world leaders, seem presidential, and that is an advantage. And it's also going to be a strange election because both of these candidates have shown they do not want to debate at all. It's unlikely that Biden is capable of debating in a free-form setting. We've seen some of his performance in press conferences, and even if the U.S. media downplays those incidents, because of social media, everybody sees those, shares those, and I'm sure people will lie about them, adding AI stuff to it to make it look worse. But there still is no doubt that his cognitive situation is waning a bit. And Trump has shown, he's far ahead. He doesn't want to debate and get down in the trenches with any of those other people who his own party in the back room are trying to set up to unseat him. So this will be a rematch of the last election, likely. And also, finally, for the economy, we've talked about the cycles of economics and how we do have cyclical recessions that have been forestalled by easy money and the creation of lots of money in the American economy. And we've just, in the last week, we have the Fed pre-announcing the rate cuts for next year to ensure, for only one reason, to ensure that we won't have a big recession that's going to start off. And so the economy is probably safe until the election. And here we come right into this article. This, of course, a left-leaning publication that just like the New York Times and others have it's informing people they're mistaken if they think the economy is bad, if they think prices in their supermarkets have risen 200 or 300% on some items. Things are great. They've never been better. And I've made fun of those articles just right on the front page of the New York Times that explain to people why they're mistaken if they want change or whatever. However you fall on this issue, certainly we have inflation and some areas of inflation going down, whatever, but the foodstuffs, the stuff that impact all the common people, people see that, they don't like that. And we also see with the polls, we do have an immigration situation that's different in the past, letting a lot of people in as economic migrants. You could talk about whether that's good or bad. It's probably ultimate good for the United States. And it's, we have people on the rights with conspiracy theories about why they're doing this, but it does impact the electorate. And I don't think you could just dismiss people by saying that all of this is a mistake. And I also don't think that, that the Democrats and the president can just disregard this. I believe there are also stats showing homelessness higher than ever. Now, if there were a Republican president in there, this would always be linked to him and the ills of capitalism. But media is largely silent on linking those two things. So again, they seem to be running interference for the president, the executive branch in this case. And there are reasons for that other than partisan reasons. I think, again, a lot of those people say we need to defeat Trump at any cost, even the cost of our impartiality. They may be right. I don't know. We're going to have these sort of things happening, and this is trumped up by a right-wing publication. We have Mexican military sees IEDs, the improvised explosive devices at the border. This is the fear with the essentially open borders in a lot of places in the United States. The tolerance, instead of putting people into camps to ship them back because they came in illegally, you're not even allowed to say we have illegal immigration and they're shipped all over. That may not really have that much impact on the economy, on the jobs, or anything. But when you report that, people say, yeah, we shouldn't have that in our country. Other countries don't allow people to just walk in. And, we have a lot of countries that might wish the United States ill. So we'll see a lot of stories like this that trump up the problems at the border, the problems with open borders or open immigration. And you might have states that send the National Guard there in to object to the federal policy of which again, this is changing. It will change from the executive branch. They've got to show that they're cracking down or they're being sensible in trying to assess people that are coming in. So yeah, this is going to be a big issue next year. It's tailor-made for rabble-rousing the populace one way or another. What else do we have here? We got more scary stuff about viruses from China. It wasn't too long ago when you couldn't even say the country that it came from because people might be prejudiced or something. But yeah, we've got enough to be concerned about rather than potential illnesses. If the illness gets me, I'll deal with it then. Hunter Biden, this is the son of the president, his sort of crazy behavior sometime, his legal situation. It seems it's almost a cliche for presidents to have a brother, a relative, or a sibling, a son or daughter who's problematic, who does silly things. I think this started way back, maybe with Carter, his brother Billy, who was sort of a funny hillbilly guy. So you always have that embarrassing relative. I don't know why this is news, but I'm sort of interested in it. Ketamine, Matthew Perry. How sad that that success ends up killing people. I know people always said, you look at the Friends cast in the first year of Friends, and then the fourth or fifth year, how kind of bloated they all look. So success will ruin our bodies, apparently, when you get enough money to eat and have all you want. And finally, I think this is a great example of the kind of return of, maybe we might say, it's not quite yellow journalism, but something like it, where you have something that panders to the masses, that draws eyes or clicks, and it's written in such a way, like it could be something where you tried to create a controversy, or it could be something like this, where you have a kid who was sucked up in a tornado and found alive in a tree. This is a great human interest story, and it's just something that makes for eyeballs on the page, something we can all identify with, even if the wars and the politics become somewhat distracting. Well, I hope you be distracted by my novel. This is my latest novel. It's a story of life, hope, yearning, love in Bangkok, Thailand. And I'm thrilled to announce that today I got the word that it is appearing in Asia bookstores all over Thailand, in Bangkok, in Pattaya, in Phuket, in Chiang Mai, in Hue Hin, and at some of the airports. This is what I'm trying to create, the definitive look at life in this city, in this time, in this age, and something timeless about young people and old people, foreigners and locals, the things that drive us to our world, to the end of the world, to our wits' end. And I hope you buy it. It's also on Amazon and Kindle. And before we go, we've been looking at, we've been looking at our Art of War cards to see if we can apply some smart thinking to our lives from this Chinese guy from long ago. And today our advice is lure your adversary to a bait. And here's what it says. Tempt your adversary to expose himself by presenting a prospect for gain. The basis of this is the right incentive tempts your adversary to take risks he would normally avoid. So, we have to think about ways we can apply such advice to business and our life. Some of these, like burn down, loot a burning house. Maybe you don't want to, but a lot of this has to do with keeping your mouth shut. Don't say everything that's on your mind. Think strategically before you blurt out something. And so that you might want to be kind a little bit to your adversary for your own benefit, rather than just expressing and being demonstrative, either literally or figuratively. Anyway, that's the headlines for today. The predictions for next year: we got Biden, we got Trump, we got a good economy. So that's about all. And we got immigration as a big, immigration is a big issue. And we're probably going to have increasingly difficult situations in funding those wars in the Ukraine and Israel because of local pressure back in the countries that have to fund those. So we may see some ceasefires. The U.S., the U.K., other liberal democracies forcing ceasefires in those situations. So got to keep things calm, got to keep the economy good for the election. So anyway, that's all we got for today. I'll see you next time for more headlines.